Sri Vishnu Sahasranama, name 733, Vaha, which means, the most common meaning of it is you, which doesn't really sound like a name. Today is Bhishmashtami, the anniversary of the day on which Bhishma, Mahajana, Pitamaha, the great personality, the grandfather, he's known widely as the grandfather, he passed away from this world on his own wish after lying on the bed. It's called the bed of arrows. Who wants a bed of arrows? Who could tolerate such a thing? And during the time when he was lying on that bed of arrows, he instructed Yudhishthira Maharaj, at the urging of the personality of Godhead, Lord Sri Krishna, and the personality of Godhead, Vedvyas, Yudhishthira inquired from Bhishma Dev about so many topics, and one of the questions that Bhishma Dev replied to Yudhishthira's about the best means of deliverance, and in response Bhishma Dev spoke the famous Vishnu Sahasranama. So it's quite fitting on this Bhishmashtami to recite Vishnu Sahasranama. It's quite fitting to recite Vishnu Sahasranama all day, every day, any day, but especially on this day. Personally, I always remember Bhishmashtami. We have it in our Vaishnav calendar within ISKCON, but we don't really do much about it or celebrate it much. But I was pleasantly surprised. About 30 years ago, I'd been staying for a few weeks in Kakinada in Andhra Pradesh. And I had my program scheduled to go, and it just happened to be, I was just going, I think it was the day before Bhishmashtami. And I don't really think much about Bhishmashtami, and I'd got to know a few people there. So many good, pious people I met there at that time. And one of them said to me, we had hoped that you would be with us to celebrate Bhishmashtami. So that stuck in my mind that they celebrated that. That was probably Sri Vaishnavas. I don't think I mean, I've been in Andhra Pradesh and Telangana many times at that time of year, but it's not a widely celebrated festival. But it was nice to think that people are thinking of Bhishma and celebrating this. Okay, so this name, Va, means you. When you're addressing someone, you, Y-O-U. Yes, it's you. It's specifically you, Vishnu. Now, it's pretty tough if you take the meaning you to try to give an impersonal slant on it, because you don't speak to you, the table. It's specifically to a person. So we invite all the impersonalists to just become personalists and take the direct meaning and understand as it is. The commentators, mostly this series of names, we have a series of names here that they are pronouns and not really names, not direct names, if you take them at their common basic meaning. But so they've been interpreted to be understood in various ways. This name, Va, is interpreted to mean who resides, Vasati. Who resides, who is the indweller, the antaryami, who dwells in everyone's heart. Ishvara sarva bhutanam hriddeshe juna tishtati. Who dwells everywhere. Parashara Bhatta, he quotes from Vishnu Purana in this regard. Vasanti tatra bhutani bhutatmanya kilatmani sacha bhuteshvashesheshu vakartartastato mune. All beings dwell in him, who is himself in all beings and the inner being of all beings. He also dwells in all of them without exception. Therefore, O sage, he is signified by the letter Va. So saying that he is the indweller, there's actually direct evidence from the word Va directly signifies the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This shloka in Sri Vishnu Purana occurs in the context where the Bhagava, these three syllables are analyzed to establish Vishnu as Bhagavan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So there's a direct reference from Smriti, Vishnu Purana, that Va means the indweller, or the one who resides in everyone, in everything, in whom everything resides. Now, at this point in Vishnu Sahasranama, many of the meanings of which are given to the name, let me put that in another way. Many of the meanings which are described for the names, it's not exactly the meanings are given, because the name of Bhagavan and Bhagavan himself are non-different. So Bhagavan is eternal, his names are eternal, and therefore the import of the names is also eternal. But when I say the meanings that are given, it means at some point in time the commentators, they sit down and they write, this is the meaning. So they give it to us. It's already there, but it's given to us. We may not be able to understand. Just like we may not know, a child goes to school, he does not know that 2 + 2 = 4. He doesn't know it. But the teacher tells him, and the teacher explains. And it's not that the teacher invented something. It's already there. It's an eternal fact. But it's revealed to the pupil by the teacher. And we can say that we have Einstein's general theory of relativity and Newton's laws of physics. And we say Newton's laws, but they're not really, they're called Newton's laws because Bhagavan, dwelling within his heart, within Newton's heart, revealed to Newton certain perceptions, observations about the universe, and Newton revealed them to others. So by the grace of Bhagavan, Newton became the instrument, the medium by which various facts about the universe were discovered. Not that he invented them. So in the same way, these names of the Supreme Lord, they are eternally existent in him. And when we say that the commentators, they've given different meanings, it doesn't mean that they're inventing them. And specifically, they give, in every case, this is the method, this is the accepted method to comment on Vishnu Sahasranam, or in any, this is a very important principle. When commenting on any Shastra, if you're going to say this is the meaning of this, you have to back it up with Shastra. Shastra yonitvat, from from the beginning of the Vedanta Sutras. This is to be understood through Shastra. So when we find in the Vedanta Sutras, they're packed up, very terse understandings. So the commentators in this Kali Yuga, the most famous commentator on the Vedanta Sutras is Shankaracharya. Somehow I'm mentioning his name a lot these days. My respects to him. Beginning with Shankaracharya, when they say, just like the first Tato Brahma Jignasa, what is Brahma? What is that? King Tad, what is Brahma? Then that is explained that Janmadyasya Yataha, the second aphorism. First of all, statement of purpose, and then what is this Brahma we're talking about? So all the commentators, Janmadyasya Yataha, Brahma is that from which everything emanates. Janmadi, everything emanates, in which everything exists, and which everything ultimately re-enters. So all the commentators, without exception, as far as I know, all the major commentators, they say this Janmadyasya Yataha. This refer, because Vedanta Sutras or Brahma Sutras, so Vedanta means the Upanishads. So when you're commenting on the Vedanta Sutras, you have to quote from the Upanishads. If you say it means this is the specific meaning of this sutra, then you have to give evidence from the Upanishads, so called Vedanta Sutras or Brahma Sutras, because beginning from Shankara has identified that the core subject matter of the Upanishads is Brahma. And all the commentators, all the subsequent commentators, none of them have challenged that. They all accept that. And that Brahma is described. So, Janmadyasya Yataha, so then what is that? What is this referring? It means it must be referring to something in Vedanta, in the Upanishads. And then, Yatova imani bhutani jayante yena jatani jivanti yat prayat yabi sangvishanti tad vijigyasasva tad brahma iti. Tad brahma iti. Now, so this Taittiriya Upanishad states that from which everything comes, that from in which everything exists, that in which everything enters ultimately, that is the proper subject for inquiry. That is called Brahma. So that covers the first two. The first two sutras of Vedanta Sutras, they summarize this statement from Taittiriya Upanishad. So in this way, this is the system, that when one makes a statement in spiritual circles, one has to back it up with a statement from Shastra. You just can't make something up. It is acceptable also to interpret words according to the rules given by Parnini. That's also accepted within Shastric circles. Not to, as long as it doesn't override the Shastric source, or it shouldn't, by one's interpretation, it shouldn't contradict the Shastric source, but it may bring out another angle. It's commenting on Shastra it's not a job for beginners, if we do according to the traditional system. Just like understanding Einstein's calculations, or the calculations made to back up his theories. They're not for beginners. It's in mathematics. The beginner has to begin with 2 + 2 = 4. He may go on to the level of being able to understand Einstein's calculations. It's an interesting thing, because someone like Einstein will come up with a theory, and then you have to, okay, this is what we know, this is the theory, and then you have to work out the calculations. Can you make the calculations to fit it? It's different to the Shastric system, whereby the Shastra is there, and one has to take all the Shastra. Or actually, this is the way by which Chaitanya Mahaprabhu defeated the philosophy of Shankara, that Shankara has done something like Einstein. Of course, Einstein came later. He had a theory and he tried to squeeze the Shastric statements to fit his theory. Whereas if one takes the Shastric statements as they are, then the natural meaning becomes obvious. So anyway, digressing a bit there. On the word va means you, means who is everywhere, who dwells everywhere, in whom everything dwells. Now, like I say, by this point, many of the meanings, they've been discussed, and already several times, and right from the beginning of Vishnu Sahasranama, the very second name, not the first. You might think the first name of Vishnu Sahasranama is Vishnu. It's actually the second name. Then the common meaning of Vishnu is he who is all-pervading, which lends itself further to the understanding that he's within everything, everything is within him. And so at this point, when we're going to be discussing also how he's bright, illuminating, this is just coming up, but we may not elaborate very much, as the commentators themselves don't elaborate very much on these meanings, because they've already been covered in other names and which directly speak of that, and even names are coming up which directly speak of that. So they'll just give some summary understanding. So it's you. It's you. Tavacharane pranatavayam. We are bowing down at your lotus feet. You, your, te, bhavataha, bhavan, they're different. So it's to you we bow down. Hiranyakashipu wanted the world to bow down to him. He wouldn't bow down to Vishnu, so he had to bow down eventually, had to lie down. Watch out, Hiranyakashipu. It's he, Saha, who is supreme, not you. He's the one who's in charge. For a little time you can play a game of being in charge. So we're all little Hiranyakashipus. It's not me. It's not the whole world is not about me. It's about you. This is godliness. That godliness is accepted and praiseworthy in every religious system of the world. We have differences and we may point out defects in other religious systems. Mostly it's a lot of things which religionists do. The Catholics will point out the faults in the Protestants and vice versa, and Muslims will point out the faults in Christians, and so on and so on. But we should recognize that tendency to recognize that it is you or it is he who is great and not me, that is a very, very important step which the animals cannot do. Human being can bow down to God. That's a very good thing in Islam also. Bowing down. You have to bow down. See, it's mandatory. You must bow down to He who is supreme. One commentator, Krishna Datta Bharadvaj, gives the meaning of this name. He, it's already accepted that Va means who dwells everywhere. He dwells everywhere, but he especially goes to the dwelling of those who sing his praise. He's everywhere, but he likes to go especially to those who sing his praise. Just like, to give a crude example, the manager or the boss of a big factory, everyone's doing their work, so many people working under him, but if he's overseeing them, he doesn't take it. He may stroll through the factory floor, doesn't take any particular notice of those who are working, although they should take notice of him and offer some respect. But if he hears, oh, someone is doing excellent work, very special, good work, oh, then he may like to go there just to see. He's so pleased. Famous verse, Naham tishtami vaikunte yoginam hridayeshu va yatra gayanti madbhakta tatra tishtami narada. Narada, you want to know where I live? What's my address? Well, where do you think I live? You can write a letter to Bhagavan, Vaikuntha. That should reach him, right? Well, the postal service doesn't go to Vaikuntha. The mundane postal service. But even if we send the postman to Vaikuntha, well, we won't know if the letter reached or not, because Yad Gatvan Anivartante Tadhama Paramamama. No one comes back. It's the black hole in which you don't enter into oblivion, you enter into bliss. So it's the bright hole, not the black hole, going to Vaikuntha. Okay, let's say theoretically, you go searching. Bhagavan, does he live here? Yeah, but we didn't see him for some time. He doesn't seem to be here. Maybe he must be in the hearts of the yogis. They're always meditating on him. We hear that he's in the hearts of the yogis. Okay, postman. Get some yogic siddhi and get anima siddhi and go to the heart of the yogi. What happened? He's not in the hearts of the yogis. Where is he? Oh, he's where his devotees are chanting his glories. He's everywhere. He's in Vaikuntha. He's in the hearts of the yogis. He's in the hearts of the bhogis and the rogis and the kastogis. He's everywhere. But he especially manifests himself where his devotees are chanting his glories. The next name is Kaha, which means who. He, you, still who? It's he. It's you. And still some people will say, who? Vishnu, they didn't get it. They're still, who is that? Who exactly is that? Who is that? Is that you're saying Brahma Jignasa and you're saying Brahma is Vishnu? Who? Is he really, is the truth really him? Who? Not me? Who? People say God is a mystery. Well, they may think of him as a mystery. He is the question without an answer. The big why. There's another one. Why? Oh, a little bit of Prajalpa from my boyhood here to illustrate the point. There was a a TV series. When I was a kid, I used to watch it. It was like it became like a cult phenomenon. Like later Star Trek became a cultish kind of thing. It was called The Prisoner. And I won't get into all the details. Some guy, he's on some island. He's a prisoner, and he's not allowed to get out of the island. And so those days, computers were just a newly developing phenomenon. So they brought him into a room and they said, "Hey, here, this computer can answer any question you have. Just type it in, and it'll give the answer." And those days, computers means you get the answer in ticker tape. Very primitive to what we have now. So they said to the prisoner, number something or other, number 6 or something, type in any question you like. So he went and typed in a question, and then the computer was working, making noises. Ticker tape was coming out and going wild, and the computer started to little explosions come out of it, and then the whole computer collapsed. And then the person who had asked, "What question did you type in?" And the prisoner, with his usual non-smiling face, says, "Why?" It's actually quite profound. As far as philosophers go, it's the ultimate unanswered question. Why? Why? Yeah, you can begin to answer it in why did the Americans join the British and the Allies to combat the Axis forces, the Nazis? Why? It's a question which you can investigate and you can give an answer. Why does water freeze? You can investigate, you can answer. Some things are more difficult to answer. Why are some people psychopaths? Might be difficult to answer. Why are some people atheists and some people theists? Becomes more difficult. But the biggest question of all, why? Why? Why anything? But when Srila Prabhupada was once asked this question, which was the person who put this question to him, thought it was the ultimate metaphysical question. Why does anything exist? And Srila Prabhupada replied, that's not the proper question. What is the ultimate source of everything? That should be the question. And that we go to Vedanta Sutra. What is the Janmadhyasya Yataha? What is the ultimate source of everything? And that question comes out to who? Not what. Later we come to why. And we'll come to that in the course of discussing this name Kaha. God is a mystery, the question without an answer. If you can't find the answer to the question, maybe we're going about trying to find the answer in the wrong way. That's why they say think outside the box. That same example I gave a few days ago. The structure of a benzene molecule, because at that time all that was known about the structure of complex molecules was that they were linear. It never occurred to anyone that the structure of a molecule could be hexagonal. When someone thought outside the box, actually just the inspiration came to him from God dwelling in the heart, that it actually came in a dream. So it was something which was just not considered. And similarly, so many advancements in leaps in science because someone thinks in a different way. Physics was in a bind because Newton's theories didn't explain everything, and then Einstein came along and thought in a different way, and then with quantum theory it came just looking at things in a completely different way. So the human intellect, we can't begin to get the answer to the question of who it is who is supreme. We won't even begin to answer that question if we presume that everything that can be understood by the human intellect. Now that it seems not to make sense. If we're to understand, surely we are to understand by the intellect. And then we come to psychology, which is it beyond philosophy? Which actually the very beginning of philosophy means epistemology. How do we understand? But actually the question, if we want to go deeper, then we have to go to human psychology. And what do we understand? How do we understand? We're influenced by. We don't come with an objective mindset. We're already influenced. We have so many influences in our minds that when we see something, we immediately ascribe so many things to it. Or if we don't know it, we're often afraid of things that we don't know. In the dark, we often become afraid because we just don't know what's there. So, when one understands, or when one begins to understand that there are certain things that we can't understand simply by applying our intellect. We have to open up our intellect to the great ocean of understanding that transcends our own intellect. Then when the mercy pours in, then we can understand. Understanding means standing under. When we understand that I cannot climb, this is a mountain I can't climb, the mountain of understanding the ultimate reality. So let's just pray. Could you throw a rope down? Even if you throw a rope down, it may be just too much. Don't have enough strength to climb such a long way. So then, could you just pick me up and carry me there? The impersonalists, they accept that we have to have a guru, we have to take knowledge from Shastra. So in one way, they're accepting that we can't just do it all by ourselves. But it's like that, give me a rope and I'll do the rest myself. I'll clamber up by myself. But the devotee thinks that I'm incapable. Just you pick me up by your mercy. And then Bhagavan comes on the back of Garuda to pick us up. Who are you? We had the name you. Who are you? This very question comes up in a very important section of the Bhagavatam, in the 11th canto, the whole 11th canto of Bhagavatam. So many important philosophical topics to understand, which really brings together a lot of the topics which have appeared previously in Bhagavatam. Now, this narration concerns 5 of the greatest, maybe the greatest intellects in the whole universe. The 4 Kumaras and Brahma, their father. If you don't know who they are, go read the Bhagavatam. If you know who they are, then you'll know. They're highly intellectual, spiritually minded, highly elevated persons. Now, the 4 Kumaras, they are, of course, there are millions of Kumaras in the world even today, but when we say the 4 Kumaras, Chatusan, that specifically refers to, what is that, Sanak, Sanatan, Sanat, Sanandana, the 4 Kumaras. So these are, Kumaras means young boys, so they're very, very old sages who keep their bodily features like this, like that of 5-year-old boys. By their yogic prowess, they keep themselves very young. So they're meditating on the nature of the absolute truth for a long time. This meditation that people do is a joke. They meditate for 15 minutes in the morning. It's nonsense. That's not meditation. Even 1 hour, nonsense. Years and years together. So the 4 Kumaras, they're meditating, and after a long time of meditation, it struck them, we really have a problem, because we understand that we have to become liberated from material existence. Material existence continues because we are, as individuals, our minds become attracted to the sense objects. So it's as if our minds, what is the subject matter in our minds is the sense objects. So our minds, they go out to the sense objects, and the sense objects, they're as if they enter within our minds. Then how can we be free of this? The yoga system of Patanjali, yoga, what is it? Yoga chitta vritti nirodha, just stop all activities of the mind. So there's no thought of anything, and then that's called yoga. It's actually a very different concept or understanding of yoga from that which is given in the Bhagavad Gita, where the meaning yoga is given of joining the consciousness with the Supreme. But in Patanjali's yoga, just stop thinking of everything, because just stop all thoughts, because the thought, as long as there's a thought, then the mind is disturbed. And as long as the mind is disturbed, then material existence continues. So this is a similar question put by the 4 Kumaras to Brahma. They couldn't work it out among themselves. They discussed, and they could. It took them quite a long time even to come to the point of asking this question. Then he went to ask Brahma, who's such a great authority on spiritual knowledge, and he himself couldn't find the answer, because if you're gonna, the mind is always active. The mind enters the sense objects. It appears that the 4 Kumaras and Brahma, they didn't accept the premise of Patanjali, that it's even possible to stop the mind at all. Patanjali is thrown or not accepted from the very beginning. It's just like in the Gita, nahi kaschik kshanamapi jatu tishtatya karma krit. We can't stop doing something even for a moment. We can't stop. The mind is always active. We can put it into a state of apparent non-thought, but that's the very nature of the mind, is to be active. So non-thought is something artificial for the mind. It's not its And then the question comes, what's left? If you say Patanjali, then what's left? If the mind is stopped. So many questions arise. Anyway, Brahma, he couldn't answer this. So what did he do? Being very intelligent, Brahma meditated on the personality of Godhead, knowing it's the personality of Godhead who inspires him to create. He is the source of all inspiration. At that time, while he was meditating or praying to the Supreme Lord, with his four of his sons present there appeared a great white, effulgent swan, and it just appeared at a little distance from them. And then the four Kumaras, following Brahma, they approached and humbly asked, Ko Bhavan, Kaha, who? Who are you? Who are you? And then the swan replied. Actually, this is Hamsa Avatar, the Supreme Lord, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, which they haven't realized yet, that he's the Supreme Lord. But he will describe that to them, not by saying directly, I'm the Supreme Lord. He will answer their question in a roundabout way, so that their question is answered to their full satisfaction. Now, if you want to understand this, then you go to the Bhagavatam, 11th canto, and read it. First, you have to read 10 cantos and go through to the 11th canto to build up one's understanding, to begin to understand this. So, he replied in a roundabout way, saying that their question is not very intelligent. It's not the best of questions. Now, to say, who are you to the Supreme Lord? Very good. But if we say that from a platform of ignorance, who are you to someone, then the very question, it expresses our ignorance, and we expect an answer that will reinforce our ignorance. Just like if we ask, who are you? Well, my name is Sujan Makwani, and I live in Kuala Lumpur, and I have a business, export-import business, and you got the answer. But no, it compounds it's a conventional answer, but it compounds our ignorance in the sense that that is not the real identity of the person. So, you may say, well, it is the real identity. No, it's not. One has to be an advanced spiritualist to understand this. And this is the point that the Hamsa Avatar will say in replying to the four Kumaras. He said to them, my dear Brahmana, Brahma janatiti Brahmana. You're supposed to know your Brahmanas. You're supposed to know what is Brahma. Why are you asking this question? Wrong question. It's an obvious question. If you see someone, you don't know who are you? Wrong question. This is at a very, very high level of discourse. The Supreme Lord speaking to, they're all Mahajans, Swayambhu, Narada, Shambhu, Kumara. They're all great personalities. Very great personalities. So he says to them, my dear Brahmanas, if when asking me who I am, you believe that I am also a jiva like you, and that there is no ultimate difference between us, since all souls are ultimately one, if you have this understanding that all souls are one, and there's no individuality, then what's the meaning of your question? Because you are me, and I am you, and we are all together. But if by asking me, who are you mean you're referring to the body, the material body, then the question is also meaningless, because the body is just made out of earth, water, fire, air, ether, and the subtle body is made of mind, intelligence, and false ego. Then maybe you should have asked, who are you 5? Referring to what are you? Are you earth, water, fire, air, ether, a combination, permutation of that? If you consider that anyway all of matter is just one anyway, then again it's meaningless. There's no, if you say everything is one, then all of matter is one, and what's the point of distinguishing one body from another? So why ask, who are you? So it appears that your question, if you think everything is all one, then to ask, who are you, it's a completely meaningless question. You're just blabbering, that's all. Then he gives the answer. Within this world, whatever is perceived by the mind, speech, eyes, or other senses is me alone and nothing else but me. But me, not you. So in one sense, everything is one, inasmuch as everything is non-different from Vishnu. But still, he points out that I am not you, but you are me. You are within me, but still you have your separate identity. Just try to understand, he tells them. Who are you? You're asking this question, how can the senses, how can the mind, which has the natural proclivity to enter into the sense objects, become free from that proclivity when the sense objects enter deeply into the mind? It's the wrong question. The question you should be asking about me. Atato Brahma Jignasa means you should be asking about Krishna. You should understand him. Tadvijigyasva. He is the proper one to be asked about. So he's pointing out to them that it's a very profound means very, it's a profound philosophical question with a deep import. Everyone should be asking this question in one sense, but in another sense it's the wrong question, because it gives the idea of getting liberation but missing the whole point, who is Vishnu. And if you understand Vishnu, then you understand everything. And that is the question. Kasmin vigyate sarvametad vigyatam bhavati. What is that? We have it, the subject matter, Mundaka Upanishad. What is it? What is that principle by understanding which everything is known? That is Vishnu. That is the proper question. Who? Who are you? Okay, I didn't start to go through the classic answers or the classic meanings given by the commentators on this name. Ka, who? The answer, Bhishma Dev. We're remembering his divine personality, his divine activities, his divine teachings on this day of Bhishmashtami. He stated this in front of his beloved Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He was in no doubt. Who are you? Who is Krishna? He is the most worshipable Lord, the one very kindly appeared before Bhishma as the sunset on the life of Bhishma, and he passed away from this world. In the presence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who he had just glorified in 1,000 names, and by the mercy of Vyas, Vaishampayana, we are also able to recite these names even today. So who are you? The answer Krishna gives in all the Vedic literatures. It's he, it's Krishna who we're searching for. So the classic meanings given to this name, I'll plan on speaking on that in another session of the name Kaha. Kaha. Who? Ko Bhava. Hare Krishna. Vancha kalpa tarubhyascha kripa sindhu patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namah. Dante nitaya chunakang padaya nipatya kridvacha kakushatameta he sadhava sakala Goranga Chandra Charne Kurutanu Hare Krishna.